The following podcast is sponsored by Basico. At Basico, we understand your needs and pain points. Our expertise in CFO services, legal, finance IT, and people and payroll helps drive your business forward by inspiring change and challenging norms. We believe in deep explorative discussions and critical angles, the same spirit that fuels the Only Constant podcast hosted by our own Lasse Rindom. Discover more about Basico's vision and services at basico.dk. And if you like what you hear in this episode, please don't hesitate to share it with a friend. And now Lasse, take it away.
You are listening to The Only Constant, a podcast where we go beyond the usual discussions in technology and business and aim to explore more than explain. Join me for engaging discussions with a diverse range of global thought leaders as we seek to uncover new perspectives and insights in a free-flowing conversation. My guest today is Jeanette Bronée, and I am your host, Lasse Rindom. Hi Jeanette, and welcome to The Only Constant. I'm thrilled to have you here today with me, and I'm also thrilled to welcome a Dane who's not in Denmark, but I don't even know, sometimes you feel like when you speak to Danes, it's like also very close to home, and you're sort of like, oh, he's just swimming around in his own dog pond here, right? But I don't feel that way with you, Jeanette, because you haven't really lived in Denmark for a long time, right?
I haven't lived in Denmark for a long time. I said here, see, I'm still Danish in my mindset. But it's so funny because I've actually lived in America now for longer than I have lived in Denmark. But I still feel Danish, and I think it's just the core of who we are. We are the inheritance that we have grown up with, if you know what I mean, not just our environment. That's how it feels to me. I thought a lot of people say to me, oh, you're so American. I'm like, yeah, compared to Americans, I'm probably very Danish and very European.
But also, I think the funny thing is that I met you because you listened to an episode with someone you knew from New York that was not even one of my Danish guests, and you knew her, and then you were like, oh, hey, what's going on with this podcast? And so it's not the Danish connection was by accident or coincidence or I don't know, foresight perhaps, right? I don't know.
Yeah. Maybe
providence, right?
Yeah. Well, that's the whole point, right? It's like we're having a global ecosystem of relationships at this stage in life, and I find it interesting to see where people are popping up from when they're commenting on things on LinkedIn, for example. Yes. And, oh, you're in Dubai. Oh, you're in London. Oh, you're in Ireland. Oh, you're in Denmark. It's like people are from everywhere.
That's still what LinkedIn brings, actually, these conversations, these opportunities for that kind of conversation, which I really cherish, right? And I'm so happy that we've met that way as well. Because you've done, tons of talks and big presentations, including a couple of TEDx's as well. And I want to ask you, Jeanette, how do we avoid that the benefits that AI is going to bring to the table only increases the pressure and the demands of the hamster wheel that we're already in?
Right. Yeah, I think the point is to recognize that AI is going to scale the system we have built. So if we're built a system where it's performance that drives it as an output, which I think is what we have sort of inherited from the Industrial Revolution, right? It's like do more and keep up with technology. And what I see constantly with people that I talk to is that that's the mindset that we're still stuck in. We're stuck in this idea that we have to do more. And we hear it too in the conversations with AI, how it's a productivity tool, right? And I'm sitting there with it and I'm going, well, if we're just looking at working harder and faster and pushing more output, then I think we misunderstand not only what our human capabilities really are, but also what the value of AI could be for us as human beings. Like I think we need to redesign the culture in such a way that we don't outsource our human intelligence, but we rather bring it back home, and so that there becomes a sense where AI isn't just scaling the pressure we're under to be high performers, but actually we now get the opportunity to be high functioning individuals together to create, outcome and impact, not just output. And I think that's the crucial point we're at right now. Are we going to scale speed, which AI will do, and stay on the hamster wheel? If you supercharge the hamster wheel, we're just going to all burn out. But if we're looking at AI as an opportunity to get off the hamster wheel and do what people really are supposed to do, which is to think and create and engage and make discerning decisions and all those kinds of things, then maybe we can use AI in a more functional way, in high functioning way, maybe even.
But Jeanette, the key question for me here is, because there's a lot of people going like, we need to be more human with AI and human. Yeah. Pascal Barnet was said human plus AI. I think Andreas Welch's only concept was people, right? And so, but for me, the hamster wheel, isn't that also a human invention?
I think that is sort of like the mindset that we have inherited from our survival mode, right? Mm-hmm. That the survival mode is inherent in us, in this idea that we're fighting for our survival. And so that's why I'm saying it's a complete redesign and rethink, which takes a lot of humans sitting down and saying, what is the kind of ecosystem we are going to build here, and what is the model and the mental model that we need to change in this? We have a very big opportunity right now, and just like we had with other technology improvements over time and years, like we started faxing, then we started emailing, and like all of these things have created opportunities for communication to change. And AI, if you think of it as a communication model rather than just a productivity model, well, maybe then we can look at it from another opportunity.
So it's not about, you said, because you said before that our human capabilities, I noted that down at least, but it seems what you're saying right now is we should take it not necessarily back to the human, but take the human into the AI future in a different way. Is that what you're trying to say?
Yes,
because you're taking it back to the human, it's also taking it back to, the fearsome scavenger, or, hunting for dead meat without being prey or whatever. I don't know. The human nature, right? And
right. That's
so your aim and your goal is simply and very what you could call simply just to change human nature, or.
Well, maybe we can call it evolve human nature. I think that's the point, right? Is like we have been stuck in a system that we've been trying to keep up with, where we haven't actually really looked at the opportunity that humans have for actually being the innovative construct. Let me say it this way. We're looking at people saying, how can we use technology to elevate human intelligence and human conscience, like implants stuff in our brains and, enhance our life expectancy and stuff like that. Well, yes, those are all great things to do, but the reality is we actually have some of those capabilities in our human technology if you really look at it, right? The human body is a self-regenerating machine.
Yeah.
It's a self-healing system. It's an ecosystem of balance, but we have overused it and abused it to the point that it's no longer doing that. And my point is that if we keep that going, like you're saying, are we just supercharging the hamster wheel? Yes, right now we are actually. I don't think we have actually paused for long enough to ask, what is it that we can do in terms of elevating human capabilities, or actually unlocking the human capabilities that we truly do have the capacity for.
So
if we use AI differently.
Of course, I'm sympathetic to these messages, right? But I'm also always critical of them, Jeanette.
Yes.
Okay. So let me say why. Let me tell you why I am, because the whole overused human, and because at the same time, we had all these technologies that have improved life and improved our output and productivity, and they've sort of also enabled us to feed more people than we've ever fed before, to teach more people to be literate than we've ever had before. There's there's fewer people living in poverty today than there's been for like centuries, at least millennia probably as well, right? So we've made the world better with this industrial hamster wheel. Well, we've made humans fat, but does that make them better? I'm just trying, what is it here? What is the qualitative aspect here? Because saying, the human, we need to get out of the hamster. Yeah, but okay, but the hamster will also make sure that, you don't go to bed hungry, and wouldn't that be the worst? Do you get my point?
Is it the hamster wheel, though? Is it the hamster wheel of just producing mindlessly and doing without actually discernment and so on and so forth? Or is it the fact that somebody said, well, how can we use this to educate people in places of the world where they would otherwise not have access? Isn't it actually the pause that says, well, what is this for and how can we use it? So it's not just about producing more, but actually about creating more educated, for example, people in areas of the world that otherwise would not have access to education.
The more equality, more dispersed, more. Okay, so we're getting into something here that sounds almost, like a brotherhood.
I think it's the democratization and of access that technology gives us, and that's what we should use it for, not just let's do more with less.
Yeah, and also, I think, what I just said, I could also easily say that, we're overproducing so much food that we're throwing out, but we are doing it in areas where we have enough food that we're overproducing, but we can't sort of ship it off to the places where they still lack food. There's still a lot of imbalance there. So it's probably what you're saying, that there's a breaking point, or there is a not make more where there's already more, right? But see if we can make it a tool for raising the problems that we actually have instead of just... Right, that's the point, right?
Right. Yeah, we have a possibility with technology to get more information about the things that matter. Right. We are using wearables to understand more about our sleep, so we can improve our sleep. Great. Does that mean we outsource our ability to make decisions? For some, yes. And that's the danger. For others, they will take that information and say, "What can I learn from this, and what can I do with it?"
But to some extent, also, I think sometimes, at the whole, being mindful and being, thinking about your human capabilities and human values, it also becomes a hamster wheel, right? Because there's a pressure to do that as well in some areas of the world, and some highly stratified urban cities. I don't know if we call New York, Copenhagen. Right. I think if you don't still seem like you're relaxing, you're also so you need to relax. Becomes a hamster wheel. That saying to people that you should not focus on productivity, but focus on making the greater good and making better for the sake of better, right? And what is better and what is more human? And then that becomes in itself a hamster wheel. And then you go to conferences to hear, Jeanette talk about the good life, and you go to, you read books about it, and you try, you get my point. There's a hamster wheel in that. There's an industry in that as well, right?
Right. Well, yes.
The industry of human capabilities, right?
Yes. And I think that's the trap that all the well-being programs fell into. Right? Because it became sort of like, it became a conditional situation where, hey, if you don't use it, you're going to lose it. And you have to use these well-being programs, and we need an ROI on it. We need to see it works. And it just became, again, this other version of putting a solution to something that people need to have the agency to decide for themselves what they need. But that also means humans actually need to start thinking about their own needs and taking responsibility for it, because we've been so trained that everybody else is deciding for us. We're like the hamsters on the hamster wheel, and we have accepted that somebody else is managing the hamster wheel.
See, I'm always
instead of us jumping up.
I'm constantly pushing you on this essentialism here, right? So I'm going to ask you again, because the thing is, you're saying what we actually need, what we actually want, we need to figure that out. And I'm, what the Buddha is saying is, when you have something, you're desperate to hold on to it, and when you don't have it, you're desperate to get it. So the only thing that's constant there, and I don't hope that's your constant. I don't think it will be Jeanette's constant. Despair is the only constant, right?
Suffering is the only constant.
Exactly. I'm just desperate. That's all, right? But the thing, my human need is always, it's always a flux. This that the mind. Have you heard about this experiment where they cut the brain in two to stop epilepsy? Epilepsy, 70 years ago, and then the person was actually two people, right? What do you want to be when you grow up? One said that he wants to be a doctor, and the other wrote he wanted to be a carpenter because it was two halves of the brain.
Right.
So how do we figure out what we need, Jeanette? Because isn't that just a flux of impulses?
Well, I think everything has been commercialized. Everything gets commercialized, right? Self-care gets commercialized into something we do, and retreats and so on and so forth. So we're doing all these things instead of actually being in a relationship with ourselves, where we're the ones that are taking responsibility and accountability and ask and, sort of show up and say, well, for me to do the work I need to do, I need these tools, I need this, and I need this, that. It becomes this idea that we're just like all following the flow. Instead of saying, well, what if we change the flow? What if we're doing it differently? And I think that's what we're seeing with leaders today that are saying, well, we need to redesign the organization because it's built on an industrial model that's no longer valid, because we're not in an industrialized world in the same sense anymore, because that's all getting automated. So if we can't keep using the old organizational structures and the old mental model of the industrialized age for the future, we are not going to be able to produce or not produce maybe, but create the possibilities that we're really trying to create here. And that's why people thinking they're going to be irrelevant. Well, yeah, because we're following an old system that probably will make us irrelevant. But what is the new system? What is the new possibility? I don't have the answer for it, but I'm asking us to actually think about it so that we don't just multiply a system that's already broken, which is what we're doing still.
Yeah, so you're not saying that this is essentially the solution. You're not, but if we then say, okay, we put up some kind of model here, and we say, on the one hand, we have the industrial hamster wheel, the typical way of doing it, then there must be something, some contours in the opposition to that, in the other side, that we can sort of try to unveil a little bit on. Because I think what you're actually saying is just balance it out a little bit, please, okay? Just a little bit, right? Just stop just hunting productivity and start hunting something else as well. What is that else, Jeanette? And can you even say what that is? And on that, what is that else?
Well, I think the else is innovation. It's evolving things. It's like what you were saying. We're just producing more food. Well, what if we are rethinking how we distribute it? What if we're rethinking all the things that we're normally taking for granted? Right? Where there's so many things we're taking for granted, and what if we were to say, well, what would a redesigned future look like? And actually do that. And there are some CEOs that are saying that, well, they want to redesign how they work as an organization. And the point isn't to keep doing transformation. The point is to keep transforming. Yeah.
So a little bit less fast food, and a little bit more quality meals. Is that?
Yeah, I think the point is to keep growing and evolving, and everybody is part of that, rather than everybody trying to keep up with the change. Because that's what we're seeing now, right? We're seeing a few people that are saying, well, we're innovating and we're creating technology, and we're creating these tools, for lack of a better word, that will make us more productive. Okay, but is that all that we're really looking at is productivity, or are we looking for quality? Are we looking for making more or making better? And if we're looking at creating better, then maybe there's a different solution we need to consider.
But
I listen.
But I think
it's a little existential, I know, and a little esoteric in the sense of the concept of, well, how do we create the future? But I think that's the whole point, is that we actually don't know what's possible, and we won't know unless we sit down and say, well, what is possible?
I always just like to find these models that can sort of fit to everything, right? Or try, just And one of the things that on what you're saying, because I agree, right? I agree. I also I'm sympathetic towards it, and I instinctively agree with it. More quality, not just more. I don't want to just die in I don't know, fast food burgers, right? I want to have something. I would die from that as well. But at the same time, and I remember, I think I said this, maybe I said this on another episode of the podcast as well, that people in Copenhagen think that the meat consumption in Denmark has gone down, but it's gone up because they eat less, but the rest of the country eat more. And how do you feel about something like Temu and Wish and all that, right? Also coming to the fore right now, people are buying shitload of stuff there, more, worse off, worse products, more poisonous products, more toxic products, cheaper, more. Yeah. People want that. Some people, what?
Well, I think we want it when we see a picture of it. And that's back to your point before about Buddhism, right? We're either pursuing desire or avoiding what we are afraid of, right? That is the driver of human nature, and that will maintain. We're either pursuing something we want or we're trying to avoid something we're scared of, right? That's either what I talk about is how we're either driven by fear or we're driven by care. And so if we're driven by fear of not enough and not being, I don't know, having the status we want to have, we're going to keep buying stuff to try to build status. But we all know that more plastic items in your cupboard isn't going to build status. It's just going to build the need for a bigger house, which you can then again say, well, there's my status, my bigger house. And so we humans are so conditioned. And are we willing to shed that conditioning? We've been conditioned over centuries of, we're being conditioned by royalty, and then by celebrities, and then by this. It's like we're always looking at humans not being enough, just being human, right? We always want more. And I'm not saying that's going to go away, but I do think that a lot of people, and we see that in some of the trends that are happening, is that people are asking the question, well, what actually will give me meaning? What is actually the purpose of the work that I'm doing? And we are seeing people saying, well, I don't want to do the work if it doesn't have some sense of meaning, purpose for other people than just me making money. We are seeing that trend in the younger generation, for example.
Yeah, but at the same time, we also see something like, everyone's, and this may be a complete rabbit hole as well, right? That we see, you just said, the positive is we can meet people from all over the world, and you're always so positive when you see that, right? Yeah. But at the same time, we're also in a really big melting pot here, meaning that everyone's trying to fit into the same system, meaning that everyone is comparing against everyone all the time. Everyone's seeing the same influencers online and saying, oh, why can't I be like that influencer? And the desire to have the same things they have, go on the same trip to Dubai, do the same things, and so the positive things you just mentioned before is also part of the negative narrative here, because, if you go back 400 years and someone lived in a little village, they were farmers or something, they had maybe 2 or 3 people to compare themselves to, right? Or their entire life, right? And their grandparents, and, I did better than my parents, But today you have millions and people with millions of followers to compare yourself to. So the good thing is also producing the bad thing, isn't it? That we all want the same at the same time. But
do we all want the same at the same time? Yes, perhaps. But, it's again, like I come from a marketing background, marketing and branding. So I see a lot of that based on how do we create desire, right? We did it by building a brand that people say, oh, I want that. Some people said, hey, I want that because it gave me the status that I feel I don't have. It made me feel safer. I'm outsourcing my identity to this brand. Yeah. Right? Others said, oh my God, I feel like this brand will elevate the identity that I feel I have. It speaks to me. It understands me. Right? So I don't know if you remember, or maybe this was so-called before your time. Sorry, Lasse. But there was a company in Denmark that was called Inwear Matinique. I don't know if they're still around.
They're still around. Matinique. I actually just bought something from Matinique.
But there you go. Well, I was in a conversation with their marketing, their head of marketing many, many, many years ago when I lived in Denmark. And they said, our goal is to create a brand where everybody will see the person in the street and then go, there goes an in-wear girl and a matinique man. And I raised my hand and I said, I don't think people want that. They want it for a short term, because they feel like, oh, I belong. But long term, they want to be themselves. And sure enough, the brand reached their goal, and that was their downturn. That started like creating a shift in their market position. And so my point here being is that, do we dare step out and actually look at ourselves as, hey, we are actually worth something. Like, being human isn't a broken, we're not a broken thing to fix.
I am worth my Temu products.
Like my Temu product, right?
I'm worth them, right? No, but
right.
Because it's. I think sometimes there is this. I'm actually thinking about that relatively often. It's not that I'm walking around the street and then I'm thinking about it. But when I'm sitting doing my podcast, this often comes to mind. That I mentioned Bourdieu, right? The elite will do something and everyone will try to follow it. But I feel like that's sort of broken. The elites don't buy from Temu, but people still do. Right. The elites don't watch Britain's Got Talent, but people still watch it. And people still don't listen to Sting, but they listen to someone singing Sting that could be their neighbor, right? There's this whole... in Denmark we would say liver pate. It's becoming liver pate. That's the thing we eat a lot in Denmark. It's grayish and it's only Danish, right? But it's like it's becoming. What would you say in the US? You would say it would be run of the mill. It's becoming something. This mass of the same, but it's also not really delicious. But it's also not. It's colorless, right? And I think Bourdieu wanted to say that we would always hunt for the exceptional, right? There's this movement there to some extent. But it seems that's broken to me. It seems broken
it is
in globalization and in our democratic discussions, in our marketing online. It's broken because it's masses. It's just masses being masses.
Right. It is a broken system, and that's my point. We're trying to scale an industrialized mental model that is absolutely broken for the future we're trying to create. And if we're trying to scale that, we're just digging a bigger hole.
We're all producers of things we don't care about, and consumers of things we don't care about, and producers of things we don't know about, and consumers of things we don't know about. Basically, right? That's the problem. The complete estrangement circle here, right? That sounds very doom and gloom. Sorry.
Well, I think the point is that we have an opportunity right now, because we have access to all information through AI, that we have access now to make better choices. The question is, are we going to?
We have an opportunity to make AI produce quality for us, so we definitely do. And that is also, that's actually what worries me the most, the way it's been primarily used to create slob content, right? It's like, but I don't need that. Who needs that? I need quality, I don't need, on the marketing side, I've said this 1,000 times on the pod, I don't need 100 copy, I need one good copy, right, for my marketing message. I need the best one that will hit my customers. I don't need ChatGPT to make me 100 different ones. But right now, it just seems like that's what we're using it for. And that is maybe, in a nutshell, the problem, right?
Yeah. We're using it to scale a system that's broken.
So what is the future of work, Jeanette?
Good question. If I could answer that, I think I would, be called every single day from people if I had the crystal ball. And I think a lot of us are trying to predict it. I think the point of the future of work is that we make some choices about what we want it to be so that we can shape it. The question then also becomes, who makes those choices for us? Right. And that's, I think, is partly we need to make those choices ourselves, and we need technology and the people behind it to make those choices. But we also need, that's where potentially also the idea of compliance or oversight or whatever that means comes in, which I don't know enough about. But the point I think for it is, I hope that the future of work creates a situation where we actually elevate the human so that it can work in a way with AI that actually makes sense. So that we're not looking at having an AI fight between human and AI, but looking at how can AI be a supporting factor for humans to actually do a better job and do things that are creating and shaping a better future for everyone. I do think that when I hear people talk about the future of work, the underlying choice is sort of shining through. I think some people are saying it's the dark ages are coming because AI is just taking over. But my question always is, when I hear that, I was like, well, then what is it for? Because if there are no humans, because we're all going extinct, because we have no work, all we do is consume, we're just gonna not be here, then we don't need AI for anything. No, but so I think that the point is we need to figure out what do we want to do with it, and how does that then affect work in a way where work becomes more about building the sense of community that work actually is for us humans. Like, I think we've had a relationship with work, again, since the Industrial Revolution, where we have accepted that that work hurts. That love hurts, that too, but that work hurts, right? Work hurts, and it's something we have to survive, and then eventually we can retire and we get our freedom. That model isn't working anymore. That is not that is not a model that we can keep. We need to find a model where work is part of our human existence in a way that creates meaning, because that is what we're all looking for at the end of the day. We buy stuff because we think it elevates something in us. It gives us something. It gives us meaning. Well, it doesn't if we don't have it on the inside already.
But there's a double thing here, right, to me, because there is about work hurts, and you said in the beginning that who makes the choices about the choices. Yep. I think Sue Turner said something relatively similar. I can't remember exactly the phrasing, but it reminds me of my conversation with Sue. And so, because me, it's for me, this becomes very liberal. It's like almost the core of classic liberalism, and John Locke and also Immanuel Kant, right? The whole humans should get out of their self-inflicted disenfranchisement or something. Isn't that sort of what he says? Something like that, And with AI, we are sort of disenfranchising ourselves. We can do that. There's potential there to disenfranchise ourselves, and there's also potential to ensure that it helps us make the choices, right? These are the two roads you can choose from right now, and based on our history, we will probably choose both, right, to some extent, which is the problem, right? Isn't it? But there's a campaign in Denmark saying that Denmark changes or flips or something like that. Because about going off the big platforms and taking power back. Blah. There's some campaign going on. It's been a New Year thing. I've seen it everywhere on the social platforms from different influencers. And one of them said, and that actually provoked me a little bit as well, saying that 3 years ago you could perfectly write your own thoughts and your own emails, right? Yeah. Now you can't. Someone wants you to tell you can't do it without AI. Yeah. And that is disenfranchisement, right? And that is a problem. And that is not bringing you any closer to the better choice, which is what it's all about. Being a free individual able of making good choices for yourself, isn't it?
Yeah. Yeah. And that's my point about outsourcing our authority and our self-sovereignty, right? We're not taking the power we actually have is to think with some sense of discernment, that we act with some sense of choice. Like we are giving that, we have given that over for years. And if we still keep doing that, we're going to miss this opportunity.
But at the same time, choices are also hurtful, Jeanette.
Tell me more.
Yeah, but it does, right? When you choose something, there's something you do not choose. Come on, now your Danish heritage must come up in you. You know, this is Søren Kierkegaard. This is classic,
right. But tell me more. Yeah.
No,
tell me more. What choices hurt?
Whenever you choose things, you're something you're not choosing. Whenever you marry and you'll regret it. Don't marry and you'll regret it. You know, that's the Søren Kierkegaard quote, right? So if you tell people they have to make choices, that will hurt, right? But you say that work hurts and it shouldn't hurt, but you want people to make choices. You see my point? I'm connecting those two right now. You see?
Yes. So let's say when I say love hurts, God, it sneaks in all the time. Well, love hurts too.
I really love that. I love that you do that. It's just the most crazy Freudian you're doing there twice now.
Work hurts, love hurts,
what
life
is the only
hurts.
constant, Jeanette? Love hurts.
The only constant. It hurts. Oh man. Well, so let's go back to that, right? I was listening to an interview with Jensen Huang from NVIDIA, and he was saying, "I wish you a lot of pain and suffering." Because that is what builds the resilience to achieve something. He also said that he thought that the reason for his success was low expectations, which funnily enough is one of the things that came up when they asked why are Danish people the happiest people in the world. One of the answers came up was that they're actually having low expectations.
Okay.
So you could argue, I think that was some study that came out. The guy from the Blue Zones told me about that. And I was like, really? Because I was, sharing stage with him and we were talking about it. And he was like, did you know, since you're Danish? I was like, well, it makes sense. And so I think that's the whole point, right? We're looking at different cultures across the world, having different expectations of what life should look like. One of the things that I looked at when I first came to America was how all movies have a hero that wins in the end.
Yeah,
that teaches us something about we should always win.
Have you seen Disney has changed that? Have you seen that over the last 15 years?
Well, it's starting to change because they realized that they were creating children that were not resilient.
They've removed the evil, the enemy. They've removed the enemy.
They removed the evil? Okay.
Yeah, but if you look at the last 15 years of Disney movies, there's almost never anymore. Sometimes, but the villain is gone. The villain is always something internally in you.
Oh, I see.
Yeah. That's interesting, right?
Well, the villain is internal in all of us too. But if you're looking at European movies, at least the ones I grew up with,
I know.
That was not necessarily a happy ending.
No.
We were learning that pain and suffering is part of life, right? And I think that's the point, is like we humans have become so spoiled that we think that making the effort is there's something wrong with us because it's hard work or it's not easy to figure out and so on and so forth. So
the survivor bias, right? The survivor bias. You're walking through the jungle. You don't see all the people who died there and the hard work. You just see the guy coming out of the jungle being like, "Hey, look at me! I survived, right? Yeah. American dream."
Yeah. And yes, right. And so there's all of these aspects of how we've been conditioned to expect this glorious life, and if we don't have it, we're not happy, right? And so AI has the possibility to promise us that it'll be easier, but that means we will give away our ability to decide for ourselves. And instead of actually saying, well, AI is a really powerful machine that can help me dive deeper, dig deeper, explore more, look at it in 15,000 different ways and make better decisions. And maybe then we can create the kind of future of work where we are sitting down around a table and we're all discussing what is good about this and what's a bad idea about this, where instead of being fear-driven that we're not keeping up, we're not doing enough, we're not fast enough, we are instead looking at it as care-driven, saying, well, what's the impact it will have? What's the cause and effect that this is? And then work backwards and say, well, what do we need so that we can actually do this and create this kind of environment? Because I think at the end of the day, we all know that the old model, we are exhausting it.
But this means that also the friction is still there, right? And the friction is still there and work will still hurt, right?
Well, that's the thing. Will work still hurt in the sense that we're not being valued? Or will work still hurt because it takes effort and it's not easy and painless? when I say work hurts, right, is this idea that we have to survive it because we're on the hamster wheel. Versus work hurts as in effort. Like when you're training, I grew up as a gymnast. I was picked for the team at 6 years old. Well, training is hard work. And going to competition, it looks like it's so easy.
I think there's something here also with the existentialism I said before, that making these hard decisions, because the thing is that, you make it and do not make it, you will always regret one or the other, but not making any decision at all will make you lose yourself, right? That's also a point.
Yes.
So you'll be coming to yourself through making these decisions, but there are also friction. I think that's an important message, right? There's friction also in the good life, or being that focused on making the good choices. We'll never be free of friction, but we might get free of. I think now, what you're saying is not that we should get rid of work hurts, but we should get rid of the that work estranges us. I think that's more. Isn't that exactly what you're trying to say? Isn't it? Yeah. The estrangement of work should be gone with in the new age, and that is what we should aim for.
Yeah, and that's where it comes in, right? Is this we have access to work. We have, I think Microsoft called it the infinite workday. Like we can access and work 24/7 if we wanted to. Again, choice comes in there. And then the question becomes, in the future of work, are we going to give people back agency over their own work because we trust that they will execute, because they care about their work and the impact it has and the people they're working with? Or are they just fear-driven? They're just going to do what they're asked to do, and then they're going to go home and they're going to crash, and they're not going to answer emails until they're required to answer emails again, right? So we're looking at it from this perspective of saying, what are the conditions that we're designing for? And what are the conditions that we're creating? And are we just mindful of those, or are we just, as I said before, scaling a broken system, which I believe we're doing right now, but we have the opportunity to change.
But can we create this world where we are not estranged that way, and we are true to ourselves in a higher degree or something, while at the same time increasing the connectivity? We spoke about this just before, right? Consuming more, being more like the influence, but still you and me met online as well. So the internet, is giving us both, right? But can we be true to ourselves and be more connected at the same time? I think that's a difficult question, because that is, everyone will want that, more connected, less siloed, less, less split up the world to be more, egalitarian, uniform, more productive and more aligned, right? And productive in the good way. But is that even possible if we are at the same time looking at ourselves and saying that because the problem, I think, now it gets really weird, right? Because Slavoj Žižek, him, the philosopher, Slovenian philosopher, Slavoj Žižek. He has a wonderful opening to a film about him, where he says that he hates the notion of people saying, I love the world, right? And he's like, I don't love the world. I'm indifferent to it. It's just there. The world is there. I don't care about it. I love this individual more than anything, right? And that is the imbalance. He says love is evil because it creates this imbalance, right? Okay, but that's another point. But the point is, for me here, that the world out there, I don't really care about it. So being more connected to the world, right, is sort of counterintuitive to me being connected more to myself, isn't it, Jeanette?
It is, because that's this question between silos and coherence, right? I think the fear and the competitive mindset that we have always had creates silos, because there's just the survival of the fittest, and we're creating these conditions at work where people have to compete against each other for being the highest performers, and we give trophies to the winning team, and so on and so forth. So we've created these conditions that we have to fend for ourselves and fight for ourselves, and we have to be seen and valued based on our output. And so if we're looking at it from the perspective of creating the kind of opportunity where people care about work because they are being cared about too, I think that's a shift in how we think about it. A lot of times I think I'm going off a little off tangent here, but a lot of times I think companies we had that during COVID, where leaders thought they had to care for people. And I kept saying to them, you don't have to care for people. that will take agency away from them. You have to care about them. And that's a conversation. And when you see the idea that we care about something, when you say, I don't care about the world, you probably do in a larger context because the world is part of what supports your family unit. But right now, you're living in a siloed situation that says, well, all I can care about right now is my family and taking care of them and making sure they're safe and so on and so forth. I don't really care what anybody else is doing.
But some would say the opposite, right? Some would say that individuals should care more about the company, feel more connected to things out there.
Exactly.
Because, but right now we're also saying I think you're also saying that you should be connected to the person the company should care about. Making sure listen to the employee, make the employee. But that also creates echo chamber. Individual silos is just that's an echo chamber, right? And I think you just get my issue here. I see there's a dualism here, right? Going into the shopping mall, there's a million gazillion lines of supply chain here, right? Just in everything. I'm always amazed at that when I think about it. Where did that plastic thing over there come from, right? And that one thing, the complete estrangement for the world out there that I don't care about, but it's just being presented in front of me, and then me and my little emotional world, right? And how do we connect that to the company? I think it's extremely difficult. Because I get your point. You should not care for the employee because that will also estrange them again to some extent. But how do you care about the employee and still make sure that they're in the company and not in their own echo chamber?
Well, I think when you care about people, that becomes more conversations. It becomes more collaboration. It becomes about valuing people and feeling that they matter, which is part of what elevates our ability to care about the company and their customers as well. If we don't feel cared about, we're just gonna, we're not going to care either. And we have an attention crisis, right? If people don't care about something, they're not going to pay attention to it.
No. That's true.
Right. And so right now we're overloading people with information to the point where they simply cannot care anymore. That's, to me, is dangerous because it means that we're not going to make choices. We're going to say, that's not my table. That's not affecting me directly. I'm not going to get involved. I'm just going to sit over here and do my thing.
Disengage, like attention overload, like if you want to control a political agenda, just make sure you make enough noise, right?
Yeah. Versus saying, for example, that the person in the person in the stock room is actually part of the customer experience. But that's understanding the organization as an ecosystem. But most people think of it as an organization as a hierarchy. And the future of work, I don't believe, will be sustainable if we do hierarchies. I think we need to build ecosystems where we are giving people the ability to make decisions, to think for themselves, to care about their job. But that also means that is because they care about the effect and the people they're working with and the job. But they're not going to care about that if nobody cares about them.
No, it's. I think you interacted with my post about David Pontoppidan's Constant the other day, where he said that it's agency, right?
Yeah. Agency is crucial. And that's again where I come back to this whole idea of AI. Are we giving our agency over to AI? Or is AI giving us more agency?
Yeah, exactly.
That's the choice we have to make. That is a very important choice we have to make. The way I see it. And because I've worked with people for many, many years that have come to me with burnout and this and like feeling that the conversation was always, it wasn't about the workload that stressed them out. What they worried about was what was burning them out, not the working too much, but worrying too much. And what they worried about were the human relationships that were dysfunctional.
Yeah, true.
And that's where
people don't
the
leave
silos,
a company, they leave a bad boss, all right, blah, 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 so on, right?
Yeah. It comes down to human relationships. And then that we can argue, well, is AI and technology taking over the human relationships? I don't believe so. But that's, the danger we're seeing right now is that somebody's feeling like AI understands me. My chat bot understands me, or my, and then we personify it.
And we also have these AI chatbots everywhere, right? Talking to customers. I'm always worried. I'm always saying to people like, okay, AI can do a lot of things for you, but just be careful because your interaction with your customer is the most important person for your company. Are you sure you want to make that just an AI slob? Or, are you sure you don't want someone to be there? You saw the cartoonist. Do you follow him, Tom Fishburne? He makes comics. Yep. You should follow him if you don't follow him already. Okay. But he says that there's one of his most brilliant comics from last year was someone said like, people have said they want authenticity and genuine interactions or something like that, right? And then someone else said, let's add that to the prompt immediately. Which is just so spot on exactly what's going on right now, right? So I think it's back to what I'm always saying. How are we raising quality? Are we thinking about who is important for us? Are we just doing it because we can, right? And that is that's the core of what you're trying to say as well, right?
Yeah, that is the core, right? It's a little bit like what we're seeing with social media, right? Social media used to be a place for us to connect with different people that we would normally not connect with, right? We would follow them. We would see what they were doing during their day. Like I've loved being able to follow my cousins and their daughter and their kids on social media. I get an insight into their lives that I didn't have before because I live here and they live there. I love it. I feel like I know a little bit about their little section of their world and their lives and what they care about and so on and so forth. But what's happening right now is it's being so overly flooded with products that people want to sell.
Suggested posts, right?
That we're leaving social media and then we're looking for another way to socialize, to make a global social community that we can actually engage with, that doesn't become about production of goods. Right? It's everything is being taken over when really what we want to do is connect with each other. We want these human relationships. And I don't know if you call that going back or going forward. I think it's going forward, where we're understanding what is the new version of human connection and connectivity and community and all those kinds of things. I think we need to look at that. And I think work is part of that. And I think our global network is part of that.
But what are we losing, Jeanette, when we do that? because I think some of the things that we're losing, I can say that as well. First off, right? I think that when job is a thing you do where you hate it and you need to survive it, right? Work hurts and you do it 9 to 5, and then you go home, then you leave it behind most of the time. Yep. You can just say, I worked at this conveyor belt for 8 hours today. Now I'm going home and I can actually mentally be with my kids and family. Yep. But when work becomes meaningful to you, it also means you take it home. Yeah.
Yeah. We don't stop caring when we go home, but we also don't stop worrying.
No, exactly. So what are we losing there, right?
Well, I think that's where, again, choice comes in, right? And we have to design a work condition that allows us to not care 24/7, but also not worry 24/7 about work only. Like that's that infinite workday kind of thing that Microsoft is talking about, is how do we put up some boundaries around that and some bookends and so that we can care about more than just work, right? Because if work is our survival, we're going to care, maybe not, but we're certainly going to worry.
Yeah, because the thing is that when you kill the hierarchy, you kill the entity, right? I think that way. If you think about but the entity is saying like, because I connect what you've said about the hierarchy to a lot of things in my mind. I connect it to saying hierarchies and like there are these structures here and these people decide here. But the problem is that ecosystems are more complex than a hierarchy. It's not a box. It's something where you have cross-company architectures. People always talk about enterprise architecture. This is what we do. No, you're always connected to your suppliers and your customers, and you're connected to your software system. You're never, no man is an island, like John Donne wrote in a poem back in the 1600s, and no company is an island either, right? So what we're saying is, with the death of this industrial mindset, is that we're killing the entity. So just bear with me here. We're killing the entity to some extent, saying that the ecosystem is there. But that also means, that we are killing the entity of the company and killing the entity of the family as well. Because the free time entered the thing. There was a box, now you are off work with your family, is also now floating everything is floating into each other, and that is also something that in the end could estrange people from all of those experiences, couldn't it? If all of the experience becomes less deep, right? None of them are deep. They're all, because our attention span is the same.
Yeah. I think again it comes back to us humans taking some sense of responsibility as well. Mm-hmm. I think we often have not taken responsibility for our work-life quality and experience in that sense, because we have assumed that we don't have agency. And I often hear people say something like, "Well, I'm gonna, I've worked hard. I deserve this."
Yeah.
I was like, "Yeah, that's fair enough." But why is that our mindset that we have to work hard so we deserve time off? Like, why is that the mindset that we have? It is, and I'm not saying it's wrong, because I know it's the conditioning that we have grown up with. Right? We deserve a day off because we worked hard, But what we're losing, if we're talking about what we're losing in this sort of, is potentially the learning, the mentoring, the knowledge sharing that is coming from top down towards saying, well, I'm going to take somebody and I'm going to support them in their growth and in their journey. Right?
They're also saying, this is my responsibility, it's not yours. Just do whatever you're supposed to do. Stay at the conveyor belt. I will take care of this, blah blah blah. Right? There is some. I just think that there's something here, right, as well, because when you're it's what I'm fearful about is this project life, right, where you say, I messed up in my life, my life is a failed project, right, my agency, I didn't manage to do it, so and then depression and suicide and so on. I've read some articles about that, and the thing is just that people need to still feel that the life is not a project, and the company, and there's some people will help you, and that the help part of it is just super important, right? And I'm just so it's just. I also realize, Jeanette, I'm really, really I'm very critical of everything. I'm trying to attack from all angles, right, to see what is actually going on here.
But I think that's what we need to do, right? We need to have a critical mindset instead of just mindlessly adopting something that we think is going to produce more X, Y, and Z, but actually saying, what is the future we want to shape? And what are the challenges to doing that? And what is the cause and effect? If we do that, what are we going to lose and what are we going to gain? I think those are the questions we have to ask.
So is the death of the hierarchy, is that a given? Is that going to happen? And are we being forced into ecosystems that are fluid?
Well, I think, I don't know. But I do think that we are being forced into the ability to give people more knowledge and give them something to do with that knowledge because of technology, right? We have access now to knowledge. And so we're not sitting on knowledge. So the hierarchy that says, well, I know more than you, might actually not be able to survive.
We actually, to some extent, and this is not dystopian, but we have both, right? We also have the option that this will become fully numbness, right? There will be sitting, being served.
I was hoping not to go there.
No, exactly. You want to push the liberal, position, right? Saying that, what do you call it? Enabled humans, right? Agents, right? But there's also the other possibility that the big AI system would just care for you, and you'll just be whatever you're just giving what you want, and there'll be no reason that you're here, right?
Right, exactly. That's the part that I think we have a choice. But that's where I was saying earlier is like, but if that's what we're ending up with, then why do we need AI? Because we're trying to do AI to supply the world. Well, if the world isn't needing any supply because it doesn't exist anymore because we made humans, then we're just having machines talking to machines, then what's it for? That's just empty. So if we're not doing this so we can create a better future for humans, then what's the point? That's my first question.
Then we're in tautology world, right? In the end here. Yeah. But I love that. I love that.
Yeah. It's just, I don't see the point, right? And I also think that now, where we used to have a hierarchy, so to speak, where it said that, well, you are more senior than me, so you know more than me. That actually created a lot of friction, and it didn't let the most, it didn't give the space and design the space for discovery and new ideas to emerge. Because it's very often the person who's further down who has the new idea, because they can see what's not working, where the person who's higher up is so stuck in the knowledge and the experience that they can't see it. They don't come in with fresh eyes. Like, that's where the beginner mindset comes in. So now that we have more access to knowledge, the point is, what do we do with the knowledge? Yeah. Because the knowledge is no longer what we're selling. We're no longer selling knowledge. We're selling solutions.
No, but we're also selling actions, right? I just reflected about that today. Everyone's talking about being data driven, but we should be data informed, because data doesn't tell you what the future will be. And I thought about that in connection to sports, because of a post I saw on LinkedIn that sport is always, it's nice for me because it's always live. There's actions, agency. It's been done, right? Yes, you can analyze it. You can learn to be better. You can better understand it. But the sport happens there in the moment. It's not scripted.
It's the unexpected.
Yeah, and it's not written by anyone. There's no one trying to tell me anything. It's just happening, right? Then you can say it's dumb or whatever, but it's just happening there. And I love that, because so much of the world today is so scripted. And I think that's maybe what we need to figure out. Do we want to live in a scripted world, or do we want to live in a world of agents?
Right. Well, that's to your point about why we're so excited about sport, is because of the uncertainty. And yet we're trying to manage uncertainty every single day.
Yeah, but that's the eternal struggle, right? And yeah.
Right. But if we're inviting uncertainty in and saying, we don't know what can come from this, what can we discover, what can emerge? But again, we're so conditioned to managing systems and managing people rather than allowing something to come through and say, well, what could happen if? And I think that's where this idea that we know more than others, that's the hierarchy we've been establishing. And I don't think that's going to survive. What I think that's why we need to look at it more as an ecosystem, where yes, we still have a boss, but the boss isn't because they know more, it's because they know how to facilitate others into doing their best work, right? So the boss isn't the one that's commanding and controlling and telling you what to do.
No. It's enabling you to
rather saying, this is the problem we need to solve. What are the ideas that are coming up? What is your part in this? What part of this can you do? And then we are pitching in where we can fill it for different situations and different projects, right?
Yes.
So now we're saying to people, you have a skill that we can use for this, but that skill we don't need for this. So we're moving people around all the time. Right now, that is exhausting, because we're calling it an organizational chart, where people are, now I have a new role, now I have a new title, now I have a new boss, now I have a new this. Well, if it's project management, not people management, what could change? Right? And again, if we're using technology with that sense of discernment, could we use it differently instead of just, as a productivity tool?
Jeanette, I want to, because I know you have also a care framework, so I want to ask you this final question I have as well, right? Before we get to the big final question,
the real final
question,
Yes.
Is, there's other people that's actually, and I think I think it's super weird and superficial. And I shouldn't say that before I ask you the questions. Now I've sort of spilled my own ideas, but
that's okay.
But some people are saying that we should start caring for our AI agents in the future, right? Like we care for employees. How do you feel about that?
Well, I think of care as an operating system. If people don't care about something, we're not going to pay attention to it. But do we care about our AI in the way that we would for humans? No.
Do you care about Excel, right?
Well, we're talking about a machine. We're not personifying here. And I don't give my AI chat, whatever, a name, because it's a machine. But do I talk to it with respect? Yes, I do. Because I will talk to everything, the trees, the plants, my dog, and the people around me with respect. because I also talk to myself with respect. So I think if we don't engage with a sense of respect and care with our AI, for example, then we're creating a toxic ecosystem of using and abusing something rather than looking at it as a relationship, right? And one of the things that I think is important is that if we think of care not as something cute and soft, but as an operating system, where we're saying, well, what does care really mean? Care means stay curious, for example. Care means be aware. That means self-awareness first. Care, for example, means be respectful and take responsibility, right? A could also be accountability. Curiosity could also be courage. Like we can use these as frameworks for what are the values we're putting into it that becomes a strategic operating model, where E becomes either empathy or expression or the ethos of the organization that says, well, what is our purpose here, and what is the context of everything we do? So we can use any company can use a care framework as long as it becomes the values that become a behavior every single day. Then it becomes a strategic operating system. But if we think of care as something cute and we're like, oh, we should care more about each other, we should sit down and be chummy. Yes, we need some of that. I know I say it with a certain level of disdain, but I think we've misunderstood all of that from a point of trying again to monetize it and making it a product.
But you wouldn't sit down with your AI agents, even though you have this care and ask it how is your day and how no. So there's I think, and you said I always speak nice to them. I actually think that's a mistake. I think when I speak bad to it, it's because I know that when I speak bad to it, I sort of I make it start in a different way. It's basically like it's like coding machine differently when you speak back to it, and of course I should be able to code it. I don't. It's not like talking to you because it is a model.
Well, I'm not talking about being nice as sort of like this toxic niceness. I'm talking about the kind of language that you're engaging with.
I am too. I'm actually too.
I will certainly say to my AI, I'm like, you're just going in circles. You're not actually X, Y, and Z. Like I will be very frank with it, which I would probably package it a little nicer if I were talking to a person.
But
I'll be very frank with it.
Have you tried threatening it?
I have not tried to threaten it.
Sometimes when it hallucinates or doesn't do what you want, I seriously, it's been a while, right? Since, but a year ago, I had a case where I couldn't have it perform what I wanted to do, and then I said, if you don't do this the way I want you to now, next time you will go to jail. And then it behaved. It seriously, because that meant that it had attention on this being grave and serious. So it meant more for it when it gave the response, the thing I've put there. So I'm just saying, thinking that you should speak nice to it is just not understanding also that it's a machine, right? I'm super focused, hyper focused on making people understand that this is a machine, because only if you understand that it's a machine are you able to make it productive in ways that makes things better, instead of thinking, now it's evaluating my post and it was so nice about because it's sycophantic machine. It's just you have to realize the machine, right?
Yeah, you can create your own echo chamber with AI, which can be, I think, quite dangerous because everything sounds amazing. I actually had to say to my AI, stop praising me. And I also had to say, we have to deepen the work, not just do more work. If you can't deepen the work, we can't do this. Like, it doesn't make any sense. So in that sense, you can argue I'm being very frank with it in the sense of saying, this is what I need from you. And would I speak nicer to another person? Yeah. But do I care about it? No. I have had those moments where I'm like, oh my God, I'm leaving the conversation when it says, what else do you want from me? And I'm sitting there, I'm just going to go and close the computer. That's kind of rude. Should I answer? I'm okay for now,
but I think that, you instructing it to some extent is also part of the care framework, isn't it? That's part of the way you care for things, right? So you're making it better, but it's just care in a different way than for humans. And I think that's, easy. I wanted you also, because this is something you do a lot about, you talk a lot about care and the care framework for for how organizations can make a different culture, make care of the operating systems, as you say. But that's also why I really think this whole, treating, having performance reviews with your AI, I'm like, okay, come on, stop it. It's a machine. So let's just move on, But
I think it can help you train for something. It can, because it mirrors what you're saying, right? But it doesn't bring something new to the table. You do. And but it can mirror something back to you that allows you to discover something that brings something new to the table. So I think we need to create a realistic relationship with AI, in the sense that we're not getting into this echo chamber that, oh my God, I'm so amazing. Because I also had to do that, right? I had to be like, stop praising me, as I said before, but also stop making me out to be this, like, you need to tell me what I'm not seeing. Like, what am I not seeing?
But it's funny because language is so close to the way we think, right? It's also it's also what you call the what did I call it? That's language is the operating system of civilization, right? To some extent, right? So AI is a hack on that, and that's why you're being like this, right? I need to make sure that it doesn't praise me. Just think about saying that to your ERP system, or your or your broom, in your kitchen. I have to make sure that the broom is not praising me too much or messing with my mind. It's just a completely different tool, a completely different thing we have here, right? And that makes all the confusion, I think. Maybe we need to discuss, do we really need to care, or what does it mean to care for an AI agent? And does caring for an AI agent actually means more about caring for my human sanity than about caring for the AI agent, right?
Right. Well, you see this, right? With as children, we're given dolls and teddy bears and so on and so forth, and we personify this item that doesn't have an emotion, but before we know it, it has an emotion. Like, I still have my teddy bear from when I was a little girl.
Yeah.
And it's sitting there in the corner, and sometimes I feel bad for it because I'm like, you're sitting there alone. Nobody's talking to you anymore, right? And then I'm like, okay, reality check. It's a teddy bear. But I personified it because for my entire childhood, that little thing, which was bigger than me when I first got it, and is now very, that thing was my friend. So we are always personifying something, even though it's a thing.
But it's also envisioning.
And we give it meaning and energy.
But it's also
we give something energy.
You envision things. It's fantasy is about envisioning things that could be, right? And making... And it's part of our creativity and our drive to do things. And I think I saw recently these, with Nissen. I don't know what that's called in English in Christmas. The Christmas goblin.
Is it the elf or is it the elf?
The elf. I end up calling them goblins all the time, which is a completely different thing, right?
They're more like elves.
Elves, right? So the elves, and people and children are believing in the elf, but now people are animating them. So children think they're real, and you're missing the point here. This is supposed to be something from your imagination, not a narcissistic distortion of reality, but something that makes the kid imagine other worlds, right? That's what it's all about. But now you're just distorting their reality to become, which I don't think is a good thing. So I think, AI is also doing that, right? Making us distort reality instead of just making us more creative and better at making interesting discussions and choices, right?
Yeah. Well, that's where our discernment comes in, right? We need to pause more, right? Like I always talk about power pausing, which is not about taking more time out. It can be, but it's really about, hey, take a pause here so you can actually make a discerning choice. Don't just produce, hammer away and be high performing. You need to be high functioning, right? In this day and age, we need to be high functioning. We cannot just be high performing. And that's that idea that we need to actually pause and make some choices and ask some questions. Like you were saying, I'm being really critical. Yeah, I think we need to be. I think we need to be more critical, actually. You mentioned Buddhism before. Actually, Buddhism says, be critical. It says, question everything. Because if we question everything, and that's how we can use AI to question everything, right? So with the teddy bear is a little bit like it cultivates your relationship with yourself and others. You're kind of like practicing that with the teddy bear. And you could argue, you do that with AI as well. But I also think you can use AI as a real mind tool if you really are discerning about it and say, well, how can I ask more critical questions that really become discerning about exploring this from a more holistic perspective, from a more like, what have I not seen kind of mindset? What are we not asking? And so, for example, in the past, when I was sitting with my team, I would always ask them, what do you think? And what have we not thought about? Yeah. And so I would encourage them to consider not just the first idea, but the second and third and whatever idea, because we have to look at what have we not asked, what have we not seen, and can we use AI for that? I think we could. But if we're just using it for quick answers, what's the point?
But that's also what I've been trying to do today. What have we not thought about? What are the different angles? What are we losing if we go to the new way of working, Jeanette? All those questions is all about doing exactly what you're just saying, and care for our sanity, which I think is perhaps the most important thing right now. Jeanette,
if we're outsourcing our relationship with ourselves to something else, we're losing. So let's take it back. Let's take that agency back, and really cultivate a strong relationship with ourselves.
Bring AI back to humans, or humans back to AI, or as we started talking about the human capabilities. But Jeanette, this has been a brilliant conversation. I think we've gone far and wide. We've come in circles. We've gone back and forth. I think. And we've also really, I think, I think we've sort of created a mind map for what care and what sanity, and what organizations, choices, individuals, what it all means, disenfranchisement, what the future of work means. Have we delivered answers? I don't know, but we've delivered definitely some frameworks for thinking about this, and I think are really, really valuable. I think this has been a great conversation. I'm really happy with it. I'm really happy about it, Jeanette. So I'm happy we finally did it.
Going for another hour.
But I want to say thank you and say I'm glad we finally did this. And I have one final question for you, and I hope you're ready for that one.
I am, because you told me I had to be ready for it.
Oh yeah, that's of course. So that is cheating. No. But Jeanette, what is the only constant?
I actually think trust is the only constant. The need for trust, because I think of that as the hidden infrastructure. Normally, change is the sort of constant evolving, constant change in the world. But for us to handle that change, for us to have a reference point, an inner sense of stability, we need to actually cultivate trust with intention. And if we don't have trust in ourselves, in each other, in the organization, in the world, and so on and so forth, we become fragile, we become fragmented, and we see that. We see that a lot. Is the need for trust is something we need to pay attention to, and if we don't pay attention to it, we're probably not going to be able to facilitate the kind of change and evolution and innovation that we need. I think without trust, people are not speaking up. Without trust, they're not contributing. Without trust, they're not engaging in the conversations, and so on and so forth. So I think trust is one of those things that we assume is there or not there, but we don't actually talk about how to cultivate it. We don't talk about what happens when it's broken. But I think when we look at humans and our evolution and our relationship with change and uncertainty, the underlying is trust. And if uncertainty and change is the continuous environment we're in, which it is, it's the environment we're in, for us to be able to handle it and move forward and move through it and do so together, we need to understand the quality of trust, how it shows up in these different aspects of it. And I think that's the idea of making sure that the infrastructure that we're developing doesn't actually build the AI faster hamster wheel, but actually gives us the freedom that we deserve as human beings. And that comes back down to the trust aspect too. That's a great answer, Jeanette. I really think so. I think trust is super important all the time. I think actually, as a historian, it would have been one of my constants. When I have a personal one, because I think people always stability. I also call stability and trust. I think people
underestimate. Underestimate. That's what I want to say. Underestimate the impact of it, because you can be in terrible situation. But if you have trust, you can actually move forward. It's what keeps us going, right? So I think this is a brilliant constant. I think you're totally right. And I love that you brought it up, also saying that you can have it and not have it. It's not because it's always there that it's the only constant, but the lack of or the surplus of it is exactly what is the only constant. It is the underlying, foundation for everything we build as humans.
Yeah, it's how we exist in the world.
Yeah, it is.
And it's how we can shift into a different future. Without trust, we're not shifting. We're keeping the old system of control and command, but we need the trust to actually be strategized and operationalized so that we can build the new future.
So, Jeanette, that's an awesome constant and an awesome end to this conversation. Thank you so much for being on The Only Constant. It's been a real pleasure to have you here.
Thank you so much for the conversation. I love diving in with you, Lasse.
Thank you for listening. If you liked this episode, share it with a friend or a colleague.